before I get to the obvious, I just again want to point out Georgia Southern. They just took a pretty good Georgia Tech team to the wire a few nights ago. I really have a lot of respect for Charlie and what he's doing. We didn't cross paths too much in the NBA, but he's been around in the NBA. He's been around in college, and I think he's doing a heck of a job with that team. They got a lot of older guys. I like the way they play. They play, and I know he coached with the Oats at Alabama. But they play a similar style. They want to get up and down and space the floor and take good shots. So it'll be fun to watch those guys as they go compete in their league. Moving on to our guys, I thought the first half was absolutely unacceptable. I was really upset at halftime, and I think our guys felt it. Our staff certainly felt it. If we have a standard, and that was so far below it. It was totally embarrassing, and I was very pleased with the second half. It was still a little ugly at times. We took some low efficient shots that were heavily contested, but some of those were by a guy that was super hot, and I'll live with those, especially when he has it rolling. But we got back to who we are. We want to turn teams over. We want to create a sense of urgency defensively. I thought our urgency and effort was far better in the second half, which created some turnovers. More importantly, it created shots that I felt like Georgia Southern was a little off balance shooting. And it led to a lot of fast break opportunities going the other way. And in the first half, we just didn't touch the paint enough. We were shooting poor shots off the dribble. In the second half, I felt like, at least, and I'll see it on film, I felt like we touched the paint far more, which inevitably and naturally collapses the defense, and then you get much more highly efficient catch and shoot shots instead of the off the dribble ones that are heavily contested. And that's the difference between scoring 58 points in a half and 40 points. And it's as simple as that. I think our guys understand that, but now they got to put a full game together. And so it was a good way to finish. Obviously, Lajae was unbelievable tonight. The past two games, he couldn't buy a bucket, and he was a little bit in his head about it. And all of our guys need to understand, when you have off shooting nights, there's other ways to impact the game. And it's always going to come back around. We have too many good shooters to shoot a low percentage. And as long as we're creating for each other, we probably have 4 or 5 guys that can do what Lajae did tonight in terms of set records, go for 30 to 40. But especially, they did it in a way that, okay, he has a hot hand, let's create for him. Let's set some pins for him. Let's find him. And I was happy to see that. Next game is going to be someone different. But Lajae has such an incredible ability to not feel a defender. And sometimes that leads to some contested shots that aren't great, but it also leads to record-setting nights like tonight. 2 other guys that I want to compliment: Chauncey Wiggins with his first career double-double, which is hard to fathom that he's 6'9" and only has 1 double-double in his career. But it has been something we've been challenging him on. He was in one of those games where I've never seen Chauncey Wiggins shoot 2 air balls. He was 1 for 5 from 3, but he pulled his boots up and went to work and helped us win in other ways. And obviously one of those ways is rebounding. And then lastly, Shah Muhammad came in the game, and even though they were late minutes down the stretch, I was really pleased with his effort in a game that was basically already decided. But that's how you earn minutes. He hasn't played in a few games. He came in, blocked 2 big shots, had a couple of rebounds. That's what we want to see from guys that are out of the rotation, and that's a way to get back in the rotation. So I was really pleased with Shah. And obviously there's a few other guys that had good games, but we'll move on to questions.
That's twice now in 5 games. Someone's been in the conversation for a record. Obviously, Robbie assists Lajae with 3-pointers. I think a lot of coaches wouldn't be aware of that or may not care of that in the moment. But it seems clear y'all have it. Why is that something that you're making players aware of, kind of trying to force to happening?
Yeah, it's not as much force, but I think records are hard to break. They're records for a reason. And there's been a lot of good basketball in this arena and even in the past. And when a guy, and maybe that's the NBA, but when a guy has a chance to break a record that stood, I don't know, in McLeod, was it 88, 89, 89? It's a long time ago. It's before I was born. And when a guy like Lajae or anyone on the team has a chance to break a record that's stood for that long, we're going to try to go get it, and we're going to try to celebrate it, but in the right way. And that's why I was going to sub him out. I felt like he wasn't doing it in the right way, and we weren't doing it in the right way. And they convinced me to keep him in, which is probably a mistake. And I never want to disrespect an opponent or make a mockery of the game, but it's very hard to break individual records. I'm more concerned about the team records we're going to break, and hopefully at some point we break a wins record. That's what I really care about. But in the process, I think we should celebrate and encourage special individual moments as long as we're going about them in an unselfish way. And I thought for the most part tonight we did that.
There was a stretch there in the first half. I think it was 12 straight shots with threes, one of which was kind of passing up a 3-on-1 dunk opportunity to pull up for three. Was that maybe?
Did you like that? Did you like that 3-on-1 and we shoot a 3 and miss it? I was happy about that. That was nice.
It caught my eye, and was that maybe the first?
Caught my eye too. Yeah.
The first time at Florida State where maybe you put the yellow light on some threes?
Absolutely not.
No?
Absolutely not. And it was a mistake, and our guys understand that I'm going to live with some mistakes. Our style of play is hectic, and it's fast, and it can lead to mistakes like that one. I mean, the 3-on-1, you got to go finish with a dunk. They understand that, and I made it well aware and apparent at halftime that it was unacceptable the way they were playing. Those aren't the threes we want to generate. We want to generate threes that are highly efficient, and that doesn't mean just launching them to launch them, right? We still want to attack the rim. We still want to get to the free throw line, neither of which we were doing, and that's why our half was terrible. And that play in particular, among a handful of others, were really disappointing for me to see. And I 1,000%, maybe in a delusional way, believe we're going to beat some really good teams this year. And it can't come from second guessing our style. Our style is going to make some people very uncomfortable on both ends. And at times it's going to lead to mistakes, and at times it's going to lead to poor shots. But the more we get comfortable with our style, it's very hard to guard. And I will never tell them to slow down. Hopefully, I'm going to let them know when they can create something better. But I never want them thinking, is this a bad shot? That's when you hesitate, and that's when you don't shoot the ones you should shoot. You got to have the ultimate green light to play here. I'm giving them that, and for some of them, they've never played with that before, and it can be tough. But that second half is what it should look like.
This is the second straight game where you talked about going into the break, you weren't really happy with the first half performance. They came out and played more to your standard in the second half. Last game that was kind of player-driven. Was that a little different tonight? And what does that say about the group that they're just able to kind of recollect themselves and get out there and perform?
Yeah. It was a little different tonight at halftime. I don't ever want to give credit to our coaching. They figured it out, and sometimes, like I said in the last press conference, sometimes that's led by coaches doing their job. Sometimes that's led by the players figuring it out. Every game's a little bit different, but I was running pretty hot at halftime, and it's a credit to them to figure it out on the floor. Our staff has a lot of really good former players on it. We can't score anymore. We can't guard anymore. They have to go do it, and however we can motivate them and encourage them to do that, sometimes out of fear and sometimes out of love. But that was my post-game speech. We can't come in halftime every game, especially against good teams and great teams that we're going to play coming up, and have this discussion. This has to be a 40-minute thing. This can't be a 20-minute thing. And I think and I hope they're well aware of that. Appreciate it, guys.